Hey, welcome to Veterans Medals Workshop. I'm glad you could be with us today because we have a really unique show. We're going back and take a look at all of the shoulder sleeve insignia and unit crest of the major units that served in Vietnam over 50 years ago. Well, there were 2.5 million American soldiers that served in Vietnam, and we're going to take a look at MACV, USARV, all of the major divisions, a separate brigade. We'll look at Transportation Command, Engineer Command, Medical Command. You're going to see all of the major units, their shoulder sleeve insignia, their unit crest, distinctive unit insignia, however you want to call it. And I think you're going to find this very, very interesting. Everything you're going to see today comes from our latest book on, shoulder sleeve insignia and unit crest of U.S. Army Vietnam. And if you want to see more of that, just click on the link below and it'll take you right to the website. You can flip through the book. I think you'll find it fun. Enough talk. Oh, whoops. If you enjoy these, please thumbs up, and even better, keep us on the air by subscribing.
Since ancient times, the identification of friend or foe has been a battlefield problem. The Roman armies often would have various units wear different colored horsehair in their helmets to provide commanders a quick overall view. In the Middle Ages, knights would have their family coat of arms painted on shields or on a banner, providing the troops an emblem as a central point to rally around. During the 19th century and the massive buildup of armies during the Civil War, the Union Army attempted to solve the problem by assigning each Army Corps an emblem to be sewn on the top of caps to provide officers on horseback the ability to identify their respective troops. And these emblems were common geometric designs, circles, squares, triangles for the corps, and each division of the Corps used the same emblem but had a different color. When the 81st Infantry Division disembarked in France in 1918, the members of the division were all wearing a patch on their left shoulder depicting a black bobcat on an olive drab background. This was to recall that they'd trained on the banks of Bobcat Creek at beautiful Camp Jackson, South Carolina, now known for Fort Jackson, South Carolina. It is reported that General Pershing said, "Go ahead and wear that patch, but be sure you're worthy of it." And by the end of the war, every unit in the American Expeditionary Force would create their own design. The Army then recognized that these shoulder sleeve insignias had a positive morale effect on the troops, especially in the trenches, and it gave the soldiers a sense of comradeship and unit cohesion that was necessary. It permitted the individual to feel that he was a member of a particular group and could take pride in being associated with the accomplishments of that unit. During the Vietnam War, the shoulder sleeve insignia was an embroidered patch worn on the shoulder of the Army uniform to identify the primary headquarters a soldier was assigned to. Most units smaller than brigades did not have shoulder sleeve insignia, and the Army is unique in that the shoulder sleeve insignia was a part of the official uniform. During the Vietnam War, soldiers wearing the khaki uniform wore their unit patch suspended by a hanger below their breast pocket, as shown. The other unique unit identification insignia for Army units in Vietnam was their unit crest, officially called a distinctive unit insignia or DUI. And these are metallic heraldic badges or devices which are derived from the coat of arms authorized a major unit or regiment. And they're designed by the U.S. Army Institute of Heraldry, and they do a careful study to make sure the history and the battle honors of a unit are incorporated into the design of the insignia. These crests were issued in pairs, and they went on the left and right epaulet of the Army green and khaki uniform. A soldier would move his shoulder sleeve insignia from the upper left shoulder to the upper right sleeve of his Army uniform to denote that he served in combat or wartime service with that unit. We'll start at the top and look at the United States Army Pacific or USARPAC insignia, which goes all the way back to World War II. The red arrow represents the strength and valor of the armed forces, while the location of the Pacific Ocean area is indicated by Polaris, the 7 stars of Ursa Major, and the constellation of the Southern Cross. The distinctive unit insignia has the red, white, and blue of the national colors and the red arrow to indicate the armed forces. The diamond at the top of the arrow indicates Diamond Head, which is the unit's home site in Hawaii. In September 1950, President Harry Truman sent the Military Assistance Advisory Group to Vietnam to assist the French in the First Indochina War. The Military Assistance Advisory Group Vietnam replaced MAG Indochina in November of 1955 and stayed until 1965 when it was replaced by MACV. It's a very rare patch and wasn't really official. It only was worn in Saigon. The U.S. Military Assistance Command Vietnam, known as MACV, entered Vietnam in 1962 and stayed until 1973, and it was located in Saigon. The shield colors, yellow and red, are Vietnam colors, and the red ground alludes to the infiltration and aggression from beyond the embattled wall. The opening in the wall through which this infiltration and aggression flow is blocked by the sword, representing the United States military aid and support. MACV had no unit crest, but it did have some interesting variations of its patches. This is a display case of a combat medic who served in both MACV and the 9th Infantry Division. The United States Army Vietnam USARV patch is shown here, and it landed in Vietnam in July of 1965 and stayed in Vietnam until May of 1972. The patch has a white sword with a gold hilt in the center of the patch that is the same shape as the MACV patch. The patch features one gold, one blue, and one red horizontal stripe in the patch with a white border. The blue represents the United States, and the red and yellow represent Vietnam. USARV did not have a unit crest. Here we'll take a look at the 1st and 2nd Field Force Vietnam. The 1st Field Force Vietnam was established in March of 1966 and stayed until April of 1971, and it was located in Trang. The Crusader sword on the patch was suggested by the shoulder sleeve insignia previously authorized for MACV and USARV. The one diagonal refers to the numerical designation of the 1st Field Force. The sword piercing the red area alludes to the constant probing of enemy territory and the positions and the driving back and crushing of enemy forces. The colors red, white, and blue are national colors, and the colors of yellow and red are those of Vietnam. The distinctive unit insignia has the authorized shoulder sleeve insignia of the 1st Field Force Vietnam, the Crusader sword representing the numerical 1, and the green mountain refers to the Central Highlands, and the open circular scroll simulates an envelopment of movement. The motto, First for Freedom, reflects the organization's spirit and determination. The 2nd Field Force was also established in March of 1966 and also stayed till, May of 1971, and it was located in Benoit and Long Binh. The shape of the shield and the unsheathed Crusader's sword were suggested by the MACV and USARV patches, and the stylized blue arrow and the sword are used to represent the purpose and the military might of the 2nd Field Force, pressing against and sweeping back and breaking through enemy forces symbolized by the red areas. The distinctive unit insignia is like the patch, but the scarlet and gold background and green palms refer to the major combat operational area of the 2nd Field Force, which included the defense of Saigon. The 2nd Field Force veteran displays his patch along with his awards as shown here. This is a fairly rare patch, the Capital Military Assistance Command patch, which was established basically after Tet, and the Crusader sword comes from the MACV and USARV patch, and the two stars indicate both the United States Army and the Army of the Republic of Vietnam basically defending Saigon. The patch was approved in July of 1969, and it was canceled effective April of 1970. Next is a patch of the 24th Corps with the motto, Honed in Combat. It arrived in August of 68 and stayed in Vietnam until June of 1972, and it was located in Phu Bai and Da Nang. It's a blue shield with a white heart, a blue heart, and a white heart superimposed one upon the other. It's an arbitrary design and in the colors of the Corps. Red arrow on the unit crest refer to assault landings at Lehi, and the blue and white and red colors of the insignia refer to the Philippine Presidential Unit Citation awarded during World War II. The Crusader sword is for service in Vietnam. Patch of the 1st Cavalry Division, known as the 1st Team, is a yellow triangular Norman shield with rounded corners, and the color yellow, the traditional cavalry color, and the horse's head refers to the division's original cavalry structure, and black, symbolic of iron, alludes to the transition to tanks and armor. The 1st Team landed in RBN in September 1965 and stayed until April 1971 and was located in Pleiku, Bien Dinh, and Quang Tri. The division crest is a miniature reproduction of the 1st Cav Division shoulder sleeve insignia with the addition of 2 5-pointed stars. The right of a division crest is the crest of the 1st and 2nd Battalion of the 5th Cav Regiment. Then the next crest is the 1st, 2nd, and 5th Battalion of the 7th Cav. The next one is the 1st and 2nd Battalion of the 8th Cavalry Regiment, then the 1st and 2nd Battalion of the 12th Cavalry Regiment. The gold-colored Indian chief on horseback represents the 1st Squadron of the 9th Cavalry Regiment. Down on the bottom row is the 2nd of the 17th Field Artillery Regiment, the 2nd of the 19th Field Artillery Regiment, and in 2 variations of the 2nd of the 20th Field Artillery Regiment. And to the right of that with the red diamond is the 2nd of the 20th Field Artillery Regiment, and then the 1st of the 21st Field Artillery Regiment and the 1st of the 30th Field Artillery Regiment. Here's some examples of 1st Cav soldiers displaying their unit crest in their awards cases. The 1st Infantry Division, the big red one, has a shoulder sleeve insignia that's extremely well known. The olive drab shield with the red one was originally approved in 1918. The distinctive unit insignia has a red top and a blue bottom with the word victory, and in the center is a raised symbol of victory from the 1st Infantry Division monument located in Washington, D.C. Starting on the first row, the 1st Infantry Division's assigned infantry battalions with the 1st and 2nd Battalion of the 2nd Infantry Regiment, the 1st and 2nd Battalions of the 16th Infantry Regiment, the 1st and 2nd Battalions of the 18th Infantry Regiment, the 1st Battalion of the 26th Infantry Regiment, and the 1st Battalion of the 28th Infantry Regiment. On the bottom row is the 1st Battalion of the 5th Artillery Regiment, the 8th Battalion of the 6th Artillery, 3 crescent moons of the 1st Battalion, 7th Field Artillery, the 6th Battalion of the 15th Field Artillery, and the 2nd Battalion of the 33rd Field Artillery Regiment. The 4th Infantry Division, known as the Ivy Division or later as the Iron Horse Division, landed in Vietnam in September 1966 and stayed through December 1970, and it was in Pleiku and Kon Tum. The shoulder sleeve insignia is a light khaki square with 4 green ivy leaves arranged as a cross, issuing from a small open circle. The 4 leaves allude to the numerical designation of a division, while the word IV, as pronounced, suggests the characters used in the formation of the Roman numeral IV. The distinctive unit insignia for the division is a gold-colored metal and enamel device. It consists of an ivy leaf on gold with a scroll inscribed "Steadfast and Loyal." 4th Infantry Division assigned infantry battalions with the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Battalion of the 8th Infantry Regiment, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Battalion of the 12th Infantry Regiment, the 1st Battalion of the 14th Infantry Regiment, and the 2nd and 3rd Battalion of the 22nd Infantry Regiment, and the 1st and 2nd Battalion of the 35th Infantry Regiment, and you can spot them by their cactus. I'd like to hear any of the veterans of the 1st and 2nd Battalion tell us a little more about their crest. On the bottom row is the 4th Infantry Division assigned artillery battalions, which is the 2nd Battalion of the 9th Field Artillery, the 5th Battalion of the 16th Field Artillery, the 6th Battalion of the 29th, the 4th Battalion of the 42nd, and the 2nd Battalion of the 77th Field Artillery Regiment. A pretty cool unit crest. While I'm not going to do it for every division, I should point out that every infantry division had its own armor unit and division support, and they had their own unit crest. Shown here, for example, is the 1st Battalion of the 34th Armor, the 1st Battalion of a 69th Armored Regiment, and the famous 1st Squadron of a 10th Cavalry Regiment. On the right of those is the 4th Engineer Battalion, or Combat Engineers, the 704th Maintenance Battalion, that's a cool anvil in the center, and the 4th Medical Battalion. The 1st Brigade of a 5th Infantry Division, the Red Diamond, landed in Vietnam in July of 1968 and stayed until August of 1971. It was located in Quang Tri. The Red Diamond was adopted by the division when it arrived in France in World War I, and the color red was selected, well, because the commanding general was an artilleryman. And it also referred to the Ace of Diamonds, was from a trade name, Diamond Die, It Never Runs. The distinctive unit insignia is a red diamond-shaped spearhead pointed upward bisecting a blue wave. Encircling the base of the spearhead is a silver scroll with the motto, "We Will," in black. Key battalion crests were the 1st Battalion of the 11th Infantry Regiment, the 1st Battalion of the 61st Infantry Regiment. You'll notice the red diamond in the center. And then the 1st Battalion of the 77th Armored Regiment and the 5th Battalion of the 4th Field Artillery Regiment. This infantry sergeant displays his 5th Infantry Division patch in the upper left-hand corner of his awards case. Here I need to show the 3rd Brigade of the 9th Infantry Division, Go Devils. The 3rd Brigade was separated from the 9th Infantry Division in July of '69 and assigned to the 25th Infantry Division, becoming the only remaining brigade of the 9th Infantry Division in Vietnam. And it was located in Tan An. The little red devil head you see over there was actually unauthorized. The 9th Infantry Division, known as the Old Reliables, landed in Vietnam in December 1966 and stayed until August of 1969. They were in Dong Tam and Tan An, if I pronounce that correctly. The shoulder sleeve insignia is a double quadrifoil, which is heraldic mark for the 9th Sun and has been made red and blue in the designated colors of the Infantry Division headquarters flag. The unique distinctive unit insignia has a red crest at the bottom, which represents the 9th Infantry Division's Tunisian campaign. The 9 rays of the sun denote the unit's numerical designation, and the gold disc in the center is for Central Europe, and the fleur-de-lis represents service in northern France. The 9th Infantry Division assigned infantry and artillery battalions are shown here. The 6th Battalion of a 31st Infantry Regiment, and they have a couple of unique unit crests. I'll show both. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Battalion of a 39th Infantry Regiment, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Battalion of the 47th Infantry Regiment, and the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th Battalion of the 6th Infantry Regiment. They also, at the bottom, had the 2nd Battalion of the 4th Field Artillery, the 11th Battalion of the 11th Field Artillery, the 3rd Battalion of the 34th Field Artillery, and the 1st Battalion of the 84th Field Artillery Regiment. The 9th Infantry Division Riverine Force was totally unique to the U.S. Army, and here's an example of one of their unique bases. As you can see, it's located in the river. Here's a look at the 2nd Battalion 4th Field Artillery Regiment being resupplied by air. The 23rd Infantry Division was reactivated in Vietnam in September 1967 and stayed until September 1971 and was located in Chu Lai. The shoulder sleeve insignia is a blue Norman shield with 4 white stars of varying sizes, all slightly tipped to the left, arranged to represent the Southern Cross. Division crest is pretty unique. The blue cross represents the Cross of St. Andrews and alludes to New Caledonia, where the division was first activated in 1942. The 4 white stars forming a Southern Cross refer to the division shoulder sleeve insignia, and the anchor behind the background refers to the Navy Presidential Unit Citation awarded to the division for Guadalcanal. The red arrow and the Philippine sunburst refer to the liberation of the Philippines and the Philippine Presidential Unit Citation, while the golden sword represents the reactivation in Vietnam. And the name Americal, the only division with a name instead of a number, is at the bottom of the crest. The division was composed of 3 separate former infantry brigades, the 11th Infantry Brigade, the 196th, and the 198th, and we'll look at each of those brigades separately. The 25th Infantry Division, nicknamed Tropic Lightning, landed in Vietnam in March of 1966 and stayed until December 1970. They were in Pleiku, Tay Ninh, and Saigon. The shoulder sleeve insignia has a red taro leaf, which is indicative of the descent of the 25th Division from the Hawaiian Division, while the lightning flash is representative of the manner in which the division performs all of its assignments. The division crest is centered on a black volcano emitting a gold cloud and a vertical lightning flash divided red above and gold below, all enclosed by a pair of green palm branches with stems crossed in the base, and the leaves terminating at either side of the cloud above. Unique combat unit crests were the 1st Battalion of the 5th Infantry Regiment, the 4th Battalion 9th Infantry Regiment, the 2nd Battalion 12th Infantry Regiment, the 2nd Battalion of the 14th Infantry, the 3rd Battalion of the 22nd Infantry Regiment, the 4th Battalion of the 23rd Infantry Regiment, the 2nd Battalion of the 27th Infantry Regiment, and the 1st and 2nd Battalion of the 35th Infantry Regiment. And you say, wait a minute, you showed me the 1st and 2nd Battalion of the 35th Infantry Regiment in the 4th Infantry Division. Yes, I did, because in 1967, the 1st and 2nd Battalion were relieved from the 25th Infantry Division and sent to the 4th Infantry. They were returned in 1970. We also show then to the right the 2nd Battalion of the 34th Armor, 1st Battalion of the 69th Armored Brigade, and then below that, the 1st Battalion of the 8th Field Artillery Regiment, the 2nd of the 9th Field Artillery, 1st Battalion of the 11th Field Artillery, 3rd Battalion of the 13th Field Artillery, and once again, we see the 77th Field Artillery, the 2nd Battalion. So you understand that sometimes in Vietnam, battalion-sized units were transferred between divisions. The 82nd Airborne Division, the All-American Division, was rushed to Vietnam after Tet in 1968. It landed in February 1968 and stayed until December 1969 in Hue, Phu Bai, and Saigon. The double A on the patch refers to the nickname All-American Division adopted by the organization in France during World War I. The patch was redesignated for the 82nd Airborne Division, and an airborne tab was authorized in August of 1942. Division's distinctive unit insignia is a blue and white fleur-de-lis, which represents the battle honors earned in France during World War I. The wings are symbolic of the division's mission, and the motto, in air and on land. Starting on the left is the 505th Airborne Infantry Regiment, and then, of course, I had to add a World War II patch just because it's kind of neat. Then the 508th Airborne Infantry Regiment, and one of their old patches because it's also neat, and the 321st Airborne Field Artillery Battalion. The 101st Airborne Division, known as the Screaming Eagles, landed in Vietnam in November of 1967 and stayed until March of 1972. They were in Pan Ran, Quang Tri, and several other locations. The shoulder sleeve insignia is based on the design of one of the Civil War traditions of the state of Wisconsin, the state being the territory of the original 101st Division. The eagle alludes to Old Abe, the famous war eagle carried into combat during the Civil War by the 8th Wisconsin Infantry Regiment. I couldn't resist adding two more variations of the patch made up by Vietnam veterans who served in the 101st. The lower left is the division's distinctive unit insignia, and it's a black eagle with a white head in downward flight issuing from a white cloud, all above a gold scroll bearing the motto Rendezvous with Destiny in black letters. The Rendezvous with Destiny motto has been the motto of the division since its founding. Right of the division crest is the crest of 187th Airborne Infantry Regiment, then the 327th Airborne Infantry Regiment, then the famous Geronimo or 501st Airborne Infantry Regiment, and then next to the last is the 502nd Airborne Infantry Regiment and the 506th Airborne Infantry Regiment. The 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, the Black Horse Regiment, landed in Vietnam in September 1966 and stayed until March of 1971. It was located mainly in Tay Ninh. The shoulder sleeve insignia is interesting. The colors red and white are the traditional cavalry colors, and the rearing black horse alludes to the black horse nickname of the 11th Armored Cavalry. The insignia was approved in May of 1967, and I hope some Black Horse Regiment veterans will tell some stories in the comments below about different designs of this particular crest. The regimental crest shown in the lower left has some unique symbolism. The regiment was organized in 1901 and saw service in the Philippines. This is indicated by the cross bolos with red blades and blue hilts. The regiment rendered very good service on the Mexican border in 1916, and this is indicated by the cactus. The regimental colors, black and yellow, are shown by the shield and the black border with the edge and by the colors of the crest, which show against the yellow regimental flag. The motto translates to "Come." I couldn't resist adding a couple of their unique patches for the Quick Saber Attack Helicopter Troop, or the Bandit Evil 1, or the Thunder Horse Air Troop. Infantry Brigade, nicknamed the Brave Rifles, landed in Vietnam in December of 1967 and served until November of 1971. Brave Rifle shoulder sleeve insignia has sweeping prongs that simulate the element of a unit in the attack, and in resembling a trident, also alluding to amphibious assault. The shoulder sleeve insignia was approved in July of 1966. The bow and arrow on the unit crest refer to the mobility and striking power of the organization, further emphasized by the words swift and true. The brigade was composed of battalions from the 1st Infantry Regiment, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the 20th Infantry Regiment, and the 21st Infantry Regiment, and supported by the 11th Field Artillery Battalion. The 173rd Airborne Brigade, nicknamed Sky Soldiers, was the first large unit to arrive in Vietnam in May of 1965, and it stayed until August of 1971. It was located in Bien Hoa, An Khe, Tuy Hoa, and Bong Sang. Shoulder sleeve insignia, the bayonet is used to refer to the brigade being borne by the wing, which alludes to the brigade's airborne status. Red, white, and blue are the national colors. On the unit crest, the simulated parachute and the stylized wings refer to the airborne mission of the brigade. The unsheathed sword point to the base, implying from the sky to the ground, and the hilt against the red section of the parachute canopy alludes to the combat assault jump made by the brigade in February 1967. It was the first such jump made by any unit in Vietnam and is indicated by the V formed by the two lightning flashes on the V-shaped silver edge of a blue area. The battalions within the brigade came from the 503rd Airborne Infantry Regiment, and I've thrown another patch in there to indicate their service in World War II. Then the 319th Airborne Field Artillery Battalion, the 17th Cav Regiment, and I couldn't resist showing the 173rd Airborne Brigade Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol. 196th Infantry Brigade, nicknamed the Chargers, landed in Vietnam in August of 1966 and stayed until June of 1972. They were located in Tay Ninh and Chu Lai, several other places before ending up in Da Nang. Shoulder sleeve insignia color blue is used to denote infantry, and the yellow and red allude to the cavalry and the artillery. The double-headed match, used during the days of the matchlock musket, was lighted at both ends to ensure readiness. The unique unit crest has a powder horn, an American symbol for readiness of a rifleman, and the arrow and bow-like scroll refer to the area of New England, which is the home area of the brigade. The colors are for the three basic combat arms of an airstrike brigade: blue infantry, red artillery, yellow armor, and the motto, ahead of the rest in black. Battalions within the brigade came from the 1st Infantry Regiment, the 7th Infantry Regiment, known as the Cotton Balers going back to the War of 1812, the 21st Infantry Regiment, the 31st Infantry Regiment, the Polar Bears, and the 46th Infantry Regiment. The 198th Infantry Brigade, nicknamed Brave and Bold, landed in Vietnam in October of 1967 and left Vietnam in November of 1971. Its final location was Chu Lai. The shoulder sleeve insignia as well is really neat. The blue and white are the colors used for infantry. The tongue of flame alludes to the unit's firepower, and the bayonet, a basic infantry weapon, is symbolic of carrying the fight to the enemy. The flame and the bayonet together thus refer to the unit's spirit and readiness to engage the enemy in a firefight or in hand-to-hand combat. The distinctive unit insignia is really neat because it has a blue dragon head surrounded by flames with a silver sword thrust through the mouth of the dragon. The dragon represents the enemies the brigade may face, and the sword impaling the head denotes a fighting spirit displayed in the face of great odds and the victorious results. Beneath is the unit motto, Brave and Bold. Battalions within the brigade came from the 6th Infantry Regiment, the 46th Infantry Regiment, the 56th Infantry Regiment, the 17th Cav Regiment, and the 14th Field Artillery Regiment. 199th Infantry Brigade, known as the Red Catchers, landed in Vietnam in December 1966, and they left Vietnam in October of 1970. They were in Song Bi, Bien Hoa, and Long Binh. And the shoulder sleeve insignia has the colors blue and white for the infantry, and the spear, an early infantry weapon in flames, symbolizes the evolution and firepower of modern infantry. The distinctive unit insignia in the lower left is a light blue in color, which refers to the infantry, and red to artillery elements of the organization. The bayonet, the basic weapon of the infantry, refers to Fort Benning, Georgia, where the organization was activated, and the crown refers to the infantry as, well, the Queen of Battle. The battalion unit crest in the 199th were the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the 7th Infantry Regiment, the Cotton Balers, the 12th Infantry Regiment, and the 17th Cavalry Regiment. The 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, called the Legion Legionnaires, landed in Vietnam in October of 1964 and stayed until March of 1971. They were located all over South Vietnam. The shoulder sleeve insignia symbolism is pretty neat. The arrowhead alludes to the American Indians' basic skills in which Special Forces personnel are trained to a high degree. The dagger represents the unconventional nature of Special Forces operations, and the 3 lightning flashes their ability to strike rapidly by air, water, or land. The Special Forces crest, or distinctive unit insignia, has lots of symbolism. The insignia is the crossed arrow collar insignia of the 1st Special Forces World War II, combined with the fighting knife, which is of a very distinctive shape and pattern, only issued to the 1st Special Service Force. The motto translates, "From oppression, we will liberate them." Of course, I can't resist a few other Special Forces patches. The current Special Forces patch being the 5th Special Forces Group insignia, variation of a distinctive unit insignia with a red 5 imposed on it, the 5th Special Forces Black Ops with the skull. Then down at the bottom, and on the bottom row, 2 variations of the Mike Force patches, and then the famous MACV SOG Special Operations Group patch, and then the rare Song Tay Raider patch. The 1st Squadron of the 1st Cavalry Regiment was known as the 1st Regiment of Dragoons, and it landed in Vietnam in August of 1967 and stayed until May of 1972. It was in Chu Lai and Da Nang. The shoulder sleeve insignia is yellow, blue, and red, which are the colors of the branches from which armor units were formed. The tank tread, gun, and lightning flash are symbolic of mobility, power, and speed, and the division designation is in an Arabic numeral. The regiment, organized in 1833, has a Black Hawk on its crest to symbolize combat during the Black Hawk Wars, and the gold belt, or the gold 8-pointed star on a circling belt, was the insignia of dragoons until 1851. The motto translates to "courageous and faithful." The 2nd Squadron of the 1st Cavalry, 1st Regiment of Dragoons, landed in Vietnam in August of 1967 and stayed until October of 1970. They were at Pleiku, Dak To, and Song May. The insignia is the same as the 1st Armored Divisions, except that the Arabic numeral is a 2, and on some versions you get the World War II Hell on Wheels tab. The heraldic design of a unit crest is a hawk rising with wings, and that symbolizes the unit's fight during the Black Hawk Wars, and it is encircled with a black belt symbolizing distinctive unit insignia shown in the lower left has a Black Hawk with raised wings, symbolizing service during the Black Hawk Wars, and it's superimposed over an 8-pointed gold star, which was a symbol of dragoons up till 1851. All of this is encircled with a black leather belt with the motto saying, "Courageous and Faithful." Of course, I couldn't resist throwing in a couple of different variations of the unit patches. The U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command came into Vietnam in 1968 and stayed until 1972 and was located in Long Binh. The shoulder sleeve insignia had a central star and lines of latitude and longitude, suggesting a globe together with arrowheads marking points of a compass. And all of this was to symbolize the fact that they were responsible for control of Army criminal investigations worldwide. The distinctive unit insignia is very similar to the shoulder sleeve insignia, but has the motto around the top of "Do what has to be done." Unique shoulder sleeve insignia was the United States Army Security Agency Group Vietnam, which arrived in Vietnam in May of 1961 and stayed until March of 1973 and was located, based out of Saigon. The shoulder sleeve insignia is a shield framed in gold with the talons of an eagle grasping 2 white lightning bolts. The patch symbolizes the ability to intercept enemy communications. The unit crest consisted of a globe in the center with symbols representing communication intercepts, enclosed by 2 gold scrolls inscribed "Vigilant Always." To the right of a unit crest are 2 patches that represent the 335th Radio Research Unit Station by the 313th Military Intelligence Battalion, and then the unique 313th ASA Battalion, Nha Trang. The 1st Aviation Brigade, known as the Gunfighters, landed in the Republic of Vietnam in May of 1966 and stayed until March of 1973, and they were located all over Vietnam. The shoulder sleeve insignia has blue and gold orange that are the colors of Army aviation. The gold of a hawk and the red of a sword handle are the colors of the Republic of Vietnam, and the shoulder sleeve insignia of the U.S. Military Assistance Command, MACV and USARV. Distinctive unit insignia consists of a swooping hawk with elevated wings, head to the left for wear on the left shoulder, head to the right for wear on the right shoulder. To add some of the colorful aviation company patches as well as a couple of display cases because, the 1st Aviation Brigade saw lots of combat.
Just for a second. If you want to take a look at the book that all of this comes from, just click on the link below. It'll take you right to the website. And there you can just go right to the book, click on it, and click on the image, and you can go through the flip book. That'll give you a great idea. And it's fun. It only takes like 10 seconds. Okay.
If you'd really like to know more information about the military patches for all of the units that served in Vietnam, I'll just flip through the book very quickly for you. And as I said, it's available for you to take a look at on the MOA Press website. So let's get back to the show. Engineer Command was established in Vietnam in December 1966 and stayed until April 1972, based out of Long Binh. The shield shape of the shoulder sleeve insignia is similar to those of the Military Assistance Command and USARV, and it symbolizes the Engineer Command's common interest and joint effort with these headquarters, with the colors of scarlet and white referring to the Corps of Engineers, and the yellow and scarlet referring to the Republic of Vietnam. The shoulder sleeve insignia was approved in February 1971, and it was canceled effective 30 April 1972. The 18th Engineer Brigade, Let Us Try and Let Us Build, has a shoulder sleeve insignia of scarlet and white. The 4 corners of the square inside the diamond reflect their 4 campaigns in World War II, Normandy, Northern France, Rhineland, and Central Europe. Sword symbolizes preparedness for peace and combat. Distinctive unit insignia is unique. It is scarlet and white, the colors of the engineers, and the 4 sides of the fort stand for planning, training, construction, and combat support. Our swords symbolize preparedness in peace and in combat, and the motto The lower right are some unique crests and insignia of the engineers: the 62nd Engineers, the 65th Engineer Battalion, the 116th Engineer Battalion, the 46th Engineer Battalion, and, well, have to love the 34th Combat Engineers insignia. Here is a nice display of a combat engineer sergeant who served in both MACV, Engineer Command Vietnam, and the 18th Engineer Brigade. 20th Engineer Brigade, with the motto Building Combat Power, arrived in Vietnam in August 1967 and stayed until September 1971, and it was located out of Bien Hoa. The shoulder sleeve insignia has colors scarlet and white that represent the Corps of Engineers, and the castle tower in the center suggests the Corps of Engineers branch insignia, or carpenter squares, which represent the multiple construction missions of the 20th Engineer Brigade. The unique, distinctive unit insignia is in the colors of scarlet and white for the Corps of Engineers. The sword and the chevrons, simulating carpenter squares, refer to the brigade's mission of combat and construction. The X, formed by the interlacing of the chevrons, denotes support and also alludes to the brigade symbol used on Army maps. One of the 20th Engineer soldiers, Al Gore, would later become Vice President of the United States. Other unit crests within the brigade were the 169th Engineer Battalion, the 307th Airborne Engineer Battalion, the 326th Airborne Engineer Battalion, the 577th Engineer Battalion, and the 871st Airborne Engineer Battalion. 18th Military Police Brigade had the motto Ever Vigilant, and it came to Vietnam in September 1966 and stayed through March of 1973, located in Saigon and Long Binh. The green and yellow colors on the patch are the colors of the Military Police Corps. The bundle sticks with the axe handles are ancient symbols of a magistrate's authority, and the sword for the military are combined to symbolize military law and order. The distinctive unit insignia, it consists of a square 1 point up divided horizontally, the top half yellow to represent day and the bottom half black to represent night, with a red lion's head showing that the military police was ever vigilant in guarding day and night. Units within the 18th Military Police Brigade consisted of the 8th MP Group, the 16th Military Police Group, the 89th MP Group, the 95th MP Battalion, the 97th MP Battalion, the 504th Military Police Battalion Vietnam, the 92nd MP Battalion, the 93rd MP Battalion, the 716th MP Battalion, and the 720th MP Battalion. The 1st Signal Brigade, first to communicate, landed in Vietnam in April of 1966 and stayed until November of 1972, and it was located and based out of Long Binh. The shoulder sleeve insignia is based on the authorized shoulder sleeve insignia of Strategic Communications Command, which I'll show you in a second. And the 1st Signal Brigade is represented as a sword with a lightning bolt for the blade, which indicates communication. Distinctive unit insignia has one bolt of lightning, a streak of electricity, which alludes to communication and to the numerical designation of the organization. The barbed arrowhead, which superimposed lightning bolt, refers to both the tactical and strategic support mission of the organization. Shown here are the crests of the 40th Signal Battalion, the 125th Signal Battalion, the 501st Signal Battalion, and the 97th Signal Battalion. U.S. Army Strategic Communications Command, Stratcom, arrived in Vietnam in March of 1964 and stayed until March of 1973. It was based out of Saigon. The orange and white colors of the shoulder sleeve insignia are representative of the Signal Corps, and the globe indicates the worldwide nature of communications controlled by the command. The lightning depicts its dynamic and strategic capabilities. The distinctive unit insignia has orange and white colors of the Signal Corps, and the swords represent the military establishment supported by the command and refer to operational readiness. The globe and the electronic flashes are adapted from the shoulder sleeve insignia and symbolizes the worldwide aspect of communication. The voice of the Army was the motto of this crest. The 44th Medical Brigade, known as the Dragon Medics, landed in Vietnam in April 1966 and stayed until December 1970. They were based out of Long Binh. The maroon and white are the colors of the Army Medical Service, and the gold star in the patch superimposed over the maroon star is symbolic of a unit's mission of command and control over medical units. The 4 points of each taken together. The distinctive unit insignia is maroon and white, and are the colors used for the Army Medical Service, and the 2 crosses refer to the medical and surgical mission of the organization, while the 4 arms of each cross taken together allude to the organization's numerical designation. U.S. Army Medical Command Vietnam came to Vietnam in March of 1970 and stayed until April 1972, and its location was, all over South Vietnam. The unit patch is maroon and white, which are the colors of the Army Medical Department. The wings and the serpents allude to the caduceus symbol representing all medical services, and the sword in place of the staff relates to the United States Army. The sword with the point to the base is symbolic of sacrifice and mercy, to the non-combatant role of the medical services. The distinctive unit insignia has a green pear-shaped scroll bearing the words responsive and dedicated, and contains a maroon Greek cross with a gold lamp issuing out 4 angles of white light, enclosed on either side by a gold serpent with heads at the top facing inward and tails intertwined behind the center of the cross. First Logistical Command, known as the First Log, landed in Vietnam in March of 1965 and stayed until December of 1970. It was mainly based out of Long Binh. The sleeve insignia consists of red, white, and blue circles superimposed over each other with a white arrow, which alludes to the speed and effectiveness in fulfilling the mission of the organization. Distinctive unit insignia has a silver arrowhead overlaid with what's called a 7-pointed mullet. The arrow alludes to speed and effectiveness in fulfilling the mission, and the 7-pointed mullet is indicative of the 7 continents of the world and refers to the ability of Logistics Command to serve in all of these areas. The key transportation units were the 48th Transportation Group, the 6th Transportation Battalion, the 7th Transportation Battalion, the 11th Transportation Battalion, the 14th Transportation Battalion, the 27th Transportation Battalion, and the 36th Transportation Battalion with that lovely big elephant head. The 15th Support Brigade, the Wagon Master Brigade, arrived in Vietnam in November 1966 and served until October 1967 when it was inactivated. It was in Long Binh and Chu Lai. The unit patch was designed like a shield with a horizontal arch in the center to represent the vital support the organization provided units, and broad arrows flowing out from the arch denoted action and visually expressing the brigade's motto of support the action. The unit crest is a red multi-lane highway bearing a blue outline star, all surmounting with the blue scrolls with the motto, Support the Action. The 15th Support Brigade was inactivated in Vietnam, and its assets were used to form the Americal Division Support Command in December 1967. The 4th Transportation Command landed in Vietnam in August of 1965 and left Vietnam in June of 1972. It was mainly based in Saigon. Brick red and yellow are the colors used for transportation. The wheel, a symbol for movement, and the trident, an attribute of Poseidon, allude to the mission of the organization and the movement of vital cargo across land and waterways. The distinctive unit insignia represents a unit's mission in France as a port headquarters during World War II, and the red circles indicate the 3 meritorious unit citations it received for service in both World War II and Vietnam. The 5th Transportation Command arrived in Vietnam in October 1966 and stayed until June of 1972, and its locations were in Quy Nhon and Da Nang. Yellow and brick red are the colors traditionally associated with the Transportation Corps. The wedge or V-shape indicates the numerical designation of the command. Disc represents a wheel, a symbol basic to transportation, and a star at its hub represents a command function. The 124th Transportation Command arrived in Vietnam in October of 1966 and stayed until May of 1972, and it was located in Cam Ranh Bay. Red and yellow are the colors used for transportation. The winged wheel symbolizes 2 of the roles of transportation, air and rail movement. 124th was responsible for operation of the port of Cam Bay. 125th Transportation Command landed in Vietnam in October 1966 and stayed until February 1970. It was located at Tan Son Nhut. Brick red and yellow are transportation colors. The wheel symbolizes the basic aspects of movement, and with the anchor refer to the organization's mission in support of amphibious operations. No distinctive unit insignia authorized for the three transportation commands. Development's command was in Vietnam as needed. The shoulder sleeve insignia has a star, which is symbolic of command, and an extended upper point emphasizes direction and purpose. The arrowhead denotes the combat aspects of the operation. The distinctive unit insignia has a red arrowhead pointing up, which is symbolic of the command's mission to produce improvements in the Army in the field through an upward-looking aggressive combat development program, with the motto, Visions to Victory. U.S. Army Materiel Command, known as AMC, arrived in Vietnam in 65 and stayed till 71, and it was all over Vietnam. The shoulder sleeve insignia is very interesting. The red section represents the Army, the blue section represents industry, and the white arrow coming down represents the two of them working together to provide support to the Army. The distinctive unit insignia represents both the Army and industry's efforts to work together to provide America's arsenal for the brave. Congratulations, you've arrived at the last shoulder sleeve insignia of service in Vietnam, the Military Traffic Management and Terminal Service. It arrived in Vietnam in June of 65, and I think it left in 71, and basically it was in Saigon. The green disc represents a go signal used for traffic control of land transport. The arrow represents the military services of the organization and the speed with which it accomplished its mission. The distinctive unit insignia is a green disc representing the land, bridges a smaller wavy disc representing the ocean, and they refer to land transportation and ocean terminal services. The three circles simulating wheels allude to motion, and the white broad arrow over the disc provides direction, control of traffic management. Thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the program as much as we enjoyed putting it on for you. And special thanks to Medals of America for supporting us. If you have any questions, contact me through my channel. I will seriously try to answer your questions. So see you next time on Veterans Medals Workshop.